intuitives. Or, welcome, intuitives and tarot and oracle enthusiasts. We're going to do both a spread and a reading today with the Book of Shadows Tarot. And it includes 2 different decks. I love this one because it speaks to me personally and also is an example of how you can mishmash decks or have more than one at least. But these 2 were made to go with each other. This is so below. And this is as above. So, let's kind of get started, shall we? Now we want to make sure that we get centered and grounded. Before we do anything. And on how to do that, we'll have a different video for a good meditation just for that. And I think I've done it in previous videos, just a real simple thing. But for now, let's assume that you've done that and that you are ready to do a reading. Well, with 2 decks, you want to kind of actually take time to shuffle both. But before I get really deep into shuffling, because I like to do it often 3 times, just kind of show you an example of the types of cards in there. So here's a 10 of water. They go by elements instead of the usual suits. This would be cups. Now what's also unusual is, unlike the 10 of cups that usually shows that there's a scene in most tarot, there's usually a really nice examination of a completion of happiness, usually with a kind of family or something oriented where it seems like everything that you've ever wanted has come to fruition. Here it has a crossroads, a very odd crossroads, because it's kind of a perfect Y split. And the people have all these little water spirits that are kind of getting them during a very strong lunar eclipse. They've got torches and they're prepared, it looks like, and with the more aging person and the younger person, we can assume that this is kind of the Maiden Mother Crone sort of aspect that gets repeated, and it has a lot of Wiccan iconography. The path is a great example. If we know, it also, since this is Major Arcana, it has the number for it. This is like the Hermit card, representing that we have to walk our own paths. We have to kind of face those challenges on our own and cultivate ourselves. It is our own personal path. Here's another one that I love that's fun, because all the swords is air. This would be in all the swords have something to do with divination, and in this case, all these air spirits are going about and helping with this divination, in which all the different suits, the ace of every suit in the minor arcana is laid out there, and then the very card in which this card is based on is there ad infinitum, which is kind of cool, because this usually is like absolute, a real terrible thing. It's usually like, in most other tarot, this is where somebody has met their end, met their demise, or that they have gone beyond what they can do. Like it's a finality, And here, it's not a finality at all. It's a reminder that you are peering into your soul and that you are the infinity that you seek, and that's also where the answers are. So, I mean, just great example here would be wands, a two of wands, but it's fire and then connected with Mercury. Here is an example of, this would be like the page of swords. So it's a very different layout and with very definite Wiccan iconography. So we're going to go here, my usual chant. I'm not going to do that here because I feel like it would bias people towards a particular method, but we can hum something that brings us a certain focus, a certain blessing. We can say, the circle be cast. The wisdoms from our reading in our minds can last. We may be guided upon our paths. And we may see all that lies before us, 3 by 3. So be it. Put that aside and we'll shuffle this one. Now I'll do it again and just shuffle one part and then kind of show it off. The reason I'm showing off these different ones, I'm hoping that someday I will gain more decks and this will become a bit of a review for people looking for prospective decks. But for now, we're just going to, I have only a small grouping. I'm sure that everybody has some of their favorites. If you would like to see yours, please do comment and we'll see what we can do about getting that. So with this particular one, this is everyday type stuff. So Knave of Swords, well, that's pretty, that's the Page of Swords. Everything here is pretty contemporary. Here's a good example of strength. No lion, no young maiden. This is actually an elderly lady taking herself for a jog. So she is mastering her strength, being mindful of her limitations, that sort of thing. So this is a very, here you have the fairy that's an elf, or not an elf, but a air spirit that is doing a very air thing. And there's a little bit of a picture on here that's kind of small and tiny but this lady is definitely trying to signal something, trying to call on a particular spirit. There's more to each card, but like here's stars. Well, no star, no naked woman pouring water, no kind of iconography. I mean, we could say there's the pouring of water, but there's kids, there's a beagle. What the hell is going on here? Well, it's a slightly different variation of hope and looking to the future. Obviously, this is from a mother's perspective. These are her hope, her focus, what she's nurturing, what she's wanting to work out here. So there's a lot of very contemporary artwork. This is another one I love. Lovers. Obviously, this is very cis, heteronormative, but I think it still speaks a lot, especially since people will, the idea of them trying to choose a house and planning together, that kind of signifies that collaboration, joining together, wanting to make things one. And that's an old-timey indication of people married. Let's see, 6 of Wands here. We have somebody rock climbing, a bunch of salamanders, fire spirits. Again, there's quite a bit of iconography. Knave of Chalices. So again, this is kind of in the Page of Chalices. And there's a lot of the water spirits here, as this individual is very reflective and trying to think about and daydream and whatnot. So there's a lot of very contemporary iconography. I love the High Priestess in this, because it's not just this keeper of a temple, especially a temple that a lot of the pillars and everything usually indicate a very um, Judeo-Christian method. Here is the goddess of the moon, reflecting in image her higher self. So that's kind of a neat thing. But it is very much in a style, again, very Wiccan and iconography, and contemporary. So Below is a very contemporary one. The other one I was trying to make certain is a very epic fantasy sort of. Alright. So today, what we're going to kind of work on is the fact that I have just made a very big series of decisions, had a lot of activity in a very short time that's very influencing on my immediate life. And I'm sure other people have had that, but I'm going to do a reading that kind of mimics that thought, but not necessarily restricts it, so that everyone can utilize this particular spread that I'm about to do without feeling like you have to have the exact same circumstances. So I went from living in one house and a lot of things a certain way, and having to come into a different house, and not right away. I had to actually stay at a completely different space. So what I want is, again, a snapshot of the present. So as above, I want to kind of see the spiritual situation, and so below, I want to kind of gain the mundane aspect. So I'm just going to pen that like that. That's the present, where I'm at right here, right now. This covers its physical manifestation and my spiritual state. Now, because this is such a broad situation, there has been a series of changes. And we'll say that this was from before. This was kind of the before. This is the kind of here now. And then we kind of want to see the kind of next step where things are going to kind of progress. So these are our 3 linear time markers, kind of going out to there. That makes sense? Alright. These are our 3 parts on a map. Well, with our map, we kind of also want to lay in, there's a thread that is very important, linking these all together. So this is going to be the bottom of the card. We'll also ask with my pendulum whether reverses are going to matter. And we'll get to that in a moment. We also want to kind of stretch that there. So we have going from there to there. Does that make sense? I hope so. If not, please ask me either in the comments or PM, and I will be very glad to kind of flesh that out. Now, there's some things on a physical level, a kind of a foundation in my present, that is helping to support me. But there are things that I'm not seeing that are going to be part of a physical challenge or the manifestation of the challenge. I want to see um, what kind of hidden things are building those challenges. And then I want something I can do both on the spiritual and the physical to address those. So how do I do that? There's quite a few ways, but to keep this from being too terribly cluttered and spread out like a sprawling metropolis, I'm just going to cross opposites here, kind of like that. Does that make sense? So the manifesting challenging quality, or the thing in the mundane that's challenging my status quo here in the present, I want to know what on the spiritual level I can put forward to kind of make sure that that is compensated against. And then the root cause, the spiritual cause there, I want to know what things on a mundane level, whether it's a practice or it's a habit or something that I can um, rely on that can keep that in check. Now, given that in this foundation here that's supporting here, there's also something that can give a bit of, let's put that here. This can be the thing that's allowing, or that we can kind of focus on, that keeps this, keeps the potency, the strength. So this looks like a big mess so far, but we're going to continue. So notice that the threads here are leading us along our path. Well, since this has been a lot of change, we want to focus on that thread to a certain extent. And except for I want to see the kind of person I was just leading into this, and the kind of person that I want to kind of become. This is important in fact that brings it back home, that brings it into this nebulous orbit, into something that has a face, primarily me. So something else that's going on that I want to address. So we have past, present, future. We have everywhere, we have both the etheric qualities and the mundane qualities. You follow? Okay, this does look like a big freaking mess. Now, there is a greater take home, and I don't have the space necessarily to put it out on this side, so I'm going to go down here closest to me. My take home is going to be a 3-card spread from both. And I'm just going to put those down like they're my poker cards. Like so. Why so much information, Loki? Well, right here, let's kind of dwell on this. This is two sides of the same coin. This is not past, present, future. This is a message, and it's trying to get out a message on a spiritual level. So things that I can internalize and things that I must externalize. Whether it's simply be mindful of these external features and these internal features, they're both going to meet up with symmetry. We're purposely evoking symmetry, even if we don't get the fantastical symmetry that we usually talk about. So if I tell you how many cards are here so far, this may seem extremely daunting. In fact, probably very much so. So just in here, there's 16 cards plus 6 more. That makes 22. For those that know the pattern of tarot, 22 is a very pertinent number, and for those familiar with Kabbalah, that's even more pertinent. But that is not my intent, so there is no greater, like, picking out this is Aleph, Bet, whatever, or Fool, etc. We are just going to go with it, and we're going to start right now. So, now, I did say at the beginning that this was also going to be a reading. So, it's a demonstration here, and the reading in its best is going to be right here. Right next to home, our little poker cards. Alright, so in the moment, since this is reversed, because anything, usually by the right hand rule, if you're right-handed, the edge, the bottom of your card is going to be there. That's just my rule. So let's bring in my pendulum, and I ask, are we honoring reverses? No. What does that mean? It means the reverse has no place here. We're reading this in its core meaning. Well, here with us, a group of celebrants, friends, community, especially right now where there are 3 roommates in my particular place. But for those of you currently in a situation, this can be about friends or community, this can be about the insight group, or this can be others. And that is a physical manifestation of the current situation. Now, the spiritual part is saying that you're contemplative, that you're looking at the mysteries within. And there's something about that where manifesting in a group, that contemplative nature. And we'll even kind of go temporarily into this book and look at the 10 of Air. We'll just read that out because I think it just shows how different it is. I mean, look at this. 10 of Air. Tarot cards, like meditation, have so many uses, and it just goes through talking about tarot. Anyway, then it gets to the crux of the meaning of it as a tarot card, ironically. Perhaps even more important is that tarot not only tells us about possible futures, it also can give us guidance in creating alternative futures. If a particular reading presents a displeasing outcome, ask the tarot for advice to change the situation. Now, it says that the 10 of Air indicates much power and control over the situation. Things are moving in a beneficial direction, that if they are not, be assured that you can easily change that. So me personally, this is very positive. This tells me that I didn't make a wrong choice in the community that I put myself into. I'm taking this as my roommates, but for the rest of you, this means that something in that community is being affirmed. That you've reached out to people, you've been connecting with people, and that your current situation is validated. Okay, we're going to move on. Now we're going to come up here to the past. We want to see how things have been shuffled in the past and where they were at. Now, these are both reversed. Interesting. Just reminding ourselves of symmetry. We have a upright and reversed. That doesn't mean anything in the fact that it doesn't change this into a malefic nature or anything, but we can still look at how the cards present themselves as a form of symmetry. Here with the Ace of Cups and the 8 of Earth. I'm less familiar with that one. So on the mundane level, I would say that there's been, for many of you, this quest, this desire, this emotional drive Now, the 8 of Earth would be like the 8 of Pentacles, but because this is such a unique deck, I want to take the time to go in through the book. So we have 3 of Earth, 9 of Earth. Okay, there we go. 8 of Earth, air creatures. Alright, we'll just kind of skip over everything. The 8 of Earth asks you to reach higher, stretch farther, and dream bigger. Whatever it is you are attempting is not even close to what is potentially possible. Slough off whatever baggage is holding you earthbound. Make yourself as light as possible by letting go of doubts and focus on what you know is possible. So, it's saying that on a spiritual level, there's this definite feeling. Your intuition is saying, you're limiting yourself. There's so much more here. You can stretch up like the boughs of the tree that there, if you see that. There's all sorts of birds and okay, the little dudes with the red hats, those are gnomes, earth spirits. Just we just won't get into that right now. We'll leave it be. We'll let them have their day. Alright, let's come down here. And now we're going to get into the future. Now, this is interesting because this is also reversed. Okay, we have the Knight of Chalices and the World. Which actually, the World is really satisfying. We'll get to that in a moment. With the Knight of Chalices, that actually is one who's very definitely has dreams and aspirations that they are setting out for. In this case, there is a picture of a woman there. This man is definitely very smitten, and the book is probably something about poetry and journals, and there's water spirits here that are kind of helping him realize his feelings on that matter. Now, he's also chewing on a little twig there, so he's not fully asleep, he's just kind of in reverie. So this kind of tells us that there's a great emotional investment, and we see the symmetry throughout. We have Ace of Chalices, 3 of Chalices, and a Knight of Chalices. So we have our water that is our interlinking position. Now, with the World, and this is kind of a pretty blasé, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill kind of world card, except for, you have the woman in the middle instead of the snake, the egg, and the naked dude. So this is about completion. So, and completing a cycle. So that's actually pretty fusing. It brings us all together, all the different parts. Now I want to see really quick this lineup. Now, very quickly, I want to point this out. There are all air cards coming down the way. This is an interlinking thing. The present has these roots of air that go into the various portions of our reading. So the future holds that we're going to be able to look back at all this. There's going to be a lot of reverie at the whole cycle that we've kind of completed, that each and every one of us is going to have a different thing, a different memory, a different continuing idea of what we're questing, and a reminder of why we're going places where we're going. And that it'll help us complete and make our lives more whole. Now, the interconnecting thread here between the past and the present, now this is palmistry, 5 of air. Let's kind of check in on that, because that is kind of a great departure from the slapping of swords and such of the usual. Alright, trying to get to that page. Palmistry, reading your palm or having it read is not a choice in a lifetime event for several reasons. First, the lines of your hand can change over time as you change. Second, even the lines, if haven't changed, the way you may perceive or utilize the information may very well change. Reassessing both the information gathered and your reactions to it will help you better understand your own strengths and weaknesses. Five of Air says it is important that our own strengths should be recognized and used to the best advantage of this time. We have what we need, but we may have to remind ourselves of that. So that is a great departure from the usual, but that kind of tells me that up until now, a lot of people have had to feel like they're winging it, and they've had to just kind of learn the hard way that you have what you have and you're not getting any more, but you have everything you need. The card down here is the Six of Air. Now notice that's an extremely well progressed 5 and then 6 of Air. That's very interesting, between the present and the future. What we see here is we see a familiar. That's the cat right there. Well, these air spirits are kind of saying, pay attention to your cat, please. They're trying to tell you something spiritual. And she's all kind of like, what? Why? Why are you so insistent on being on top of my book? So let's take a look really quick, because again, this isn't a dangerous situation that somebody's getting out of. This doesn't seem to pair up with the usual means of the deck. Alright, we call on our special animal companion or guide or a familiar, whether we interact with them on the physical plane or on another plane. We turn to them for many things, including guidance, direction, moral support, companionship, strength, understanding, and healing. The Six of Air points on relying on or deepening our connection with our animal helpers. In this case, their wisdom, guidance, or healing is needed. Animal guide will bring an important message. Now, not everybody has a pet. Not everybody has animals that they're around regularly, so we can probably look at that, especially since down here there's a great deal of stuff about completion and romantic natures. So we can take this in another step, that there are spiritual guides. There are spiritual guides that have been giving physical signals. This particular deck does not include spiritual guides on the concept of something ethereal. They just have this familiar. So I would guess that this also represents some sort of message or guides or whatever. Some of you have familiars, so this may be pertaining to you. The thread that's interconnecting is that from the present, where you were kind of doing a lot of this introspection, you are now getting outside of yourself information and guidance that is helping you towards completion. And kind of like the water spirits down here, you're getting a message to, you're getting help. Now, before we get to the different personal reflections cards, let's look at our challenges and what feeds and counters them, and our foundations. So let's look at our foundation really quick and what we can do to kind of keep that. So 9 of Wands, and what we can keep is Sowen. Don't worry, it's Irish Gaelic. Trust me, it's Sowen or Samhain. Those are two accepted. This would otherwise be the Death card, by the way. Or not the Death card. Oh no, it's not. This would be the Moon card. I'm sorry, the number. I'm pretty sure. Let's just make sure, because this is kind of throwing me off. Alright. We're going to go back here. The Moon. I was right. So it works kind of like the Moon card, and it's in a very specific thing. So the darkness, the unknown, reflection and preparation, strong spiritual connections, communication between the realms. We'll come back to that thought. I know I muttered it off quickly, but let's look at our foundation really quick. Nine of Wands. So for me personally, this is saying that the work is almost done. You have to kind of persevere to get the rewards, even if it's laborious. And that the foundation has been based on that this has not been a simple task. This has not been a one shot. This has been highly premeditated. This has been trial and error over and over and over and over and over. Okay? With the spiritual underlying part, yes, the spiritual underlying part being the moon, we're going to take that as being highly intuitive. This has been on the astral sort of building. This has been in inner world kind of projecting out. This has been a deep spiritual communication. And for many of you, that may also still entirely hold true. And I had this differently set up. I had it set up like that, didn't I? Okay. Now let's look at our challenges over here. Okay. The thing that's kind of that's manifesting a lot of opposition. Three of Wands. Well, that seems really positive. Well, Three of Wands is usually one of those that you're biding time. You've done a certain amount of things, you're waiting for the signs that stuff is going. So it's that something is occulted here. Something, you've been doing the work and you've been doing stuff, but there's something that's, you're waiting for the signs. The signs haven't manifested, but something's ripe. The time may have already come and displayed itself, and you're just not seeing it yet. What we can do, oh wow, see? That Ten of Water is what we can do on the spiritual level, which this is kind of a bit of vigilance, but let's look that up really quick. The Ten of Water, to kind of counter that occulted signs. So water, we're not there yet. Okay, we're in the water section. Ten of Water, the other world. So these are the facets of Hecate according to this book. The Ten of Water brings you squarely to a place of uncertainty and forces you to do something. There are people who need to find, or spirits you need to contact, allowing the fog and haze to grow between you and whoever is no longer an option. So this tells me that you need to, that for people that are taking this spread to heart, or taking this reading to heart, there's been this challenge that you're not seeing the results. Well, now it's time to act. Now you are being called to, you can't just sit and wait. There is something that you've got to do, and it's a spiritual thing, a highly spiritual thing. You've been given the go-ahead, you know what to do, you've been waiting for the signs, but it's saying you can't wait for that. Something is, you need to be able to, in order to counter what's lying under the surface. Now, what's been spiritually holding this? Well, you've been kind of going on your own path. You've been kind of doing this alone, and that has brought you to this point that you don't recognize the signs. But what you can do to kind of make sure that you're not fueling that situation more, here's the Four of Chalices. This lady asleep is being given a vision of something much better. The options that are there are just not fitting, and perhaps that's why we're not seeing anything. Everything seems status quo, and we're looking for something exceptional. Well, this exceptional something obviously is not manifested in our lives yet. So what has, what can counter this solitary path's side effects is that we can listen and we can dream and we can imagine something more. We can behold better standards and not feel like we have to go with what's there, like it's just something in front of us. This card is something spiritual and saying you can't just stand there and do nothing. So it's asking us to go forward with a vision. Go forward and take an action of a spiritual nature to counter the fact that things are going to cloak an occult and that we're going to feel very alone. If we act in the agency that what we are doing, even if it seems like it doesn't do anything, is actually really doing something, that'll get us moving forward. And that comes very well connecting with that bit of our guides are telling us to do stuff, to get stuff done. Now, our last cards out here on the main 16. What we were and what we are becoming, or what we need to embody in order to kind of move forward. So let's look at this. Five of Swords. This is what we expect. So this would be the complementary card, folks. The fact that they're both in the same place, that is a major sign. That is a major indicator that in the past we had to learn. We had to learn where our limitations are at, and that we can make the most of what we have. And it defines whether we're successful, resentful, or accepting. Now, over here, now also notice that what have we had upright? We've had very few things upright, and it has been very symmetrical down here, 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 and here. But nowhere else are we getting right side up stuff. So we want to keep that in mind because that's something to bear in mind. So here we have the Empress. Yes, this is kind of dated. Yes, this is a woman, not a man. So very important. This is a dated deck. I want to say that the imagery has a lot to do with the early 2000s. But that shouldn't deter away from the vintage of it, should not deter away from the message. She's taking agency. She's making those phone calls. She's getting this stuff done. She's taking time out of what may be very busy. And again, it's the assumption, because she's in her kitchen, that that's a major area that she does stuff in the house, which is not necessarily the case with everybody. So what that tells me is that in order to get where you need to go, you need to take agency. You need to very much listen and take action and not stand still. Okay. So, down here with our special spread, let's take it out, because this is our the spread, if you will, for reading for other people. Now notice those are all reversed. And then we're going to, those are all upright. Look at that. These are all upright. These are all reversed. That's very important. So this is the spiritual plane, and just as though the spiritual plane was rooted in the sky, we have the crone of air. I've read this one several times because it's essentially the card that says, you don't need to know. She's got her hand on the book, her mouth is shut, she's looking at you like, you know what you need to know, and you don't need to know anymore. Here we have in the middle, we have the Two of Earth. Here it's kind of like shuffling around. It's the seashore. It's a balance between two worlds. You're having to dip into the spiritual and in the physical, and to find what you're looking for. And this is another one that I've had to have a lot, which is the tree in the woods. Six of Earth. This one is where it can be very helpful, just like a tree in mythology is a world tree. This is the point in which you can ascend to different planes. You can kind of traverse your way. It's the segue but it can also be the thing that confuses you the most, because based on your perspective, it can change its appearance and you can get lost easy if you aren't in the right mindset. Now, the ones that they pair up here, so the shut up, you've got enough on your plate, you already know, is Knave of Chalices. There's our Page of Cups. It means that you need to actually, everything that's important has been your dreams, your aspirations, your hopes, your desires, what you really want inside. So, whatever else the rest of this reading has been for you folks, down here it's saying productively, this is the first bit of what you need to know. Well, okay, our going between spiritual and mundane, our Six of Wands. Now this one again is kind of a that you're gaining accomplishment. You've been doing that work, and that just like a mountain climber can look back down or can be seen from the ground, you have a tangible accomplishment. It's something that's no small feat. You have mastered yourself, and by the time that that person gets up to that fire spirit, they've attained something that very few have. So it's saying that in this spiritual, between spiritual and physical, this thing that you've had to do, that mundane people generally ignore the spiritual realm. And you've had to be going between your inner realm and your outer realm to get stuff done. And just like here, we can say that the water and the earth and the earth and the water, well, I guess this is, yeah. Because well, no. Because the particular code, if you will, with the chalice being water, well, the knave is the page. The page is usually, oh no, page is earth. Usually page is earth, knight is air, queen is, or lady is water, and the king is usually fire of that particular element. And that's just element to element, the binary combinations. Here, in connection with our tree and our kind of thought of that a segue, if you will, well, here we go. What you've bound yourself to, what you are trying to unite, that thing that is your unity, that makes the whole world make sense. So we've been kind of seeing that in the flow. So let me elucidate. So in this, we've been having water all the way down. Back again. Yeah. 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 We've been having this flow of water, and the fact that the complement to the Knight of Chalices is here, the Knave of Chalices, gives us that assurance that this is definitely a water-based thing. It's about the heart, the emotions. And we have water all over the place. We have our Four of Chalices there as well. Now there's something else that then comes into the center with the Six of Wands. And that is the fact that we have a Nine of Wands here. And we have a Three of Wands up there. What is going on there? Those are multiples of 3. We want to keep that in mind, 3 by 3. This is something that in Wiccan philosophy is really important. So if this is what we're waiting for, and this is the long haul, quite a bit later, this is us getting the work done. Oh, sorry. This is the stuff where we're getting stuff done. Now, with our lovers part, that's where we're uniting. This really kind of echoes some of the Three of Chalices energy in the fact that we're having to bring things that were inner and outer world. We're trying to bring that unity to get somewhere. So this is, overall, this is not a mundane spread. This is laying out in in no uncertain terms that we were coming to a sense of completion about our being, our holistic being. That this hasn't been, like, for me, even though the mundane aspects, and we'll kind of talk them out, having to get my, put on my big pants, and then I'm going to have to go forward more so from this point. And then I'm also going to have to, I'm having to look at the fact that this has been a long haul. So I know this has been a lot to take in, but where we have the lovers type stuff is that we had this sense of a quest. Then we found those that would join us on the quest. Then we found a dream, something to believe in, that we've been growing on, moving to something. We've been trying to bring this all together to a meaningful whole. So for those of you out there that buying the house or coupling up or, making plans together, maybe that community is trying to reach out. Or perhaps it's a spiritual source that's saying, hey, we need to get more connected. That just like the maiden, mother, and crone, we need to have some of that unity when we do stuff. So I hope this has worked for you. I'm sorry if it's been jiggly. I had to try some new stuff. And yeah, this has been an epic spread, 22 cards. If you have been here this long, please click a like and subscribe. Thank you. And we'll kind of work on this again later. This is not the spread, and I repeat, this is not the spread that you're going to be doing in the Zoom meeting. This has been both a reading and a spread, or a theory to a spread that you can do. Now, mind you, you'll have to watch this probably a bazillion times, I'm sure, to really catch exactly where I was going. That wasn't the point of this. You weren't meant to just recreate this. If you have, kudos. But really what's going on here is I was telling you the very theory on how I built this monster spread. You have the power. So ask your questions. Form your path. Because guess what? You're the one that's got the answers. So, namaste, and blessings be with you.